which will be made available on our website a few days after the hearing. Feel free to write any questions or concerns you might have in the chat, which we will be monitoring to be sure we capture your input. And we hope to address these items throughout the presentation or respond directly when we have the answers. Next slide, please. So just some housekeeping. Stated previously, this public hearing for the Con Plan Substantial Amendment is being recorded and will be made available to the public. The recording, along with the slides in PDF format, will be available in a few days on our website. Comments during the public comment period are saved as public record. All participant lines have been set to mute and camera off. For any comments, please use the raise hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. There's also a Q&A feature that you can access by pressing the three dots where it says more at the bottom of your screen. So please know that any questions you may have regarding the amendment and report will be included in the final report. Lastly, if you would like the closed captioning on, you can click the icon at the bottom of your screen to show captions. Next slide, please. Our presenters, or our facilitators today are Alexis Navarro, myself, Luke Gladstein, and Dawn Magnuson from the HUD reporting team. And we'll have presenters Fareed Barzai and Corey Vance. We'll give you some more details on the amendment. Next slide, please. So on the agenda today, we will first have an introduction and background that will tell us a little more about what the Consolidated Plan Amendment is and its purpose. Then we will go over changes to the goal outcome indicators and funding, followed by updates from the home team. Lastly, we will cover how to make comments or ask questions. And then we will open the floor to questions and comments live. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background on amendments. When HCD needs to make big changes to a plan, like the Con Plan, we need to make an amendment. Depending on the size of the change, it could either be a minor amendment or a substantial amendment. Substantial amendments happen when we need to add or remove goals, change how money is awarded, or make changes to our public participation process. Next slide, please. The Consolidated Plan, also known as the Con Plan, is a 5-year plan required by the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development to lay out California's needs and set goals for how funds will be used for non-entitlement jurisdictions, which are jurisdictions that don't get their money directly from the federal government. That includes programs, Community Development Block Grant, Emergency Solutions Grant, Home Investment Partnerships Program, National Housing Trust Fund, and Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS, which is administered by the Department of Public Health. Next slide, please. The changes in our goal outcome indicators reflect rising costs as well as potential funding changes, and is a more accurate projection of people served and units constructed. The home team will speak to you in detail about their updates to methods of distribution and language changes. But first, we will turn it over to Fareed for some info on the goal outcome indicators.
Thank you, Luke. Now I will briefly walk us through the updates to the goal outcome indicators and funding estimates. These updates are part of our efforts to keep the Consolidated Plan aligned with real-world conditions. As we all know, construction and housing costs have continued to rise, and federal funding levels can fluctuate year to year. So we have revised our projection to reflect what we know about recent awards and anticipated funding. For example, we have adjusted the number of housing units we expect to build or preserve and the number of households we anticipate serving through rental assistance or home buyer programs. These changes don't mean we are scaling back or ambitions, our ambitions. They are about being realistic and transparent with the public and our partners. We have also updated the funding estimates across all five programs we administer: CDBG, Home, ESG, Hopeful, and National Housing Trust Fund. These updates help us better plan for how we will distribute resources and meet our goals over the next few years. Ultimately, these changes help us stay accountable and ensure that we are using federal funds as effectively as possible to support affordable housing, prevent homelessness, and invest in community infrastructure. We welcome your feedback on these updates and look forward to hearing your thoughts during the public comment period. Thank you. Now I will pass it on to Corey for the home
Thanks,
method
Fareed.
of distribution.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm here to talk about the changes we made in the con plan for the home program. The first thing that we addressed were our methods of distribution. So a method of distribution is a HUD term, and it just means, how do we decide where the home funds get spent in the state of California and who we award them to for what projects. So the method that you would most likely be familiar with would be a NOFA, or a Notice of Funding Availability. So in our normal process, we announce a NOFA, we set an application date, interested eligible applicants submit an application there that are scored and compete against each other for funding, and then we make awards, right? So that's a competitive NOFA. What we did in this section is opened up more flexibility for us to use additional methods of distribution in certain cases. And the main reason we did that is to make sure that we are spending our money within the statutory commitment deadline that we have from HUD. So what sometimes happens, we get into situations where we may have a more limited amount of time to expend our funds. And if we don't meet that statutory deadline, we're at risk of having to return the funds to HUD. And so all of these changes that we're making are directed to make sure that we never get in that situation, and we can use the home funding that was earmarked for California in California for our people. So we made 6 changes that all feed into that goal. So the first thing we did is we opened over-the-counter methods of distribution to all types of applicants. So in the past, we've been able to use over-the-counter methods for our Native American entities. Now, with this change that we made, we'll be able to use them for state recipients, developers, chodos, every type of applicant that we may have. Can we move to the next slide? All right. And then the second change is related to that, where we, since we're opening up the over-the-counter methods, we outlined that are non-competitive. We outlined the conditions that we would use to prioritize over-the-counter applicants for projects and programs if the demand is greater than the funds available. The third change we made was we also gave the con plan amendment gives HCD the discretion to limit the eligibility for applicants to those that have projects with an existing HCD award, but that have not been able to move on to construction due to funding gaps. So, if a project has been awarded from home or another HCD program, but it hasn't moved on to construction and they have a funding gap, we have the ability to limit our applicant pool in certain cases to those projects. The fourth amendment change that we made in this amendment is that we removed the maximum funding limits for home awards. So basically, we said, in whatever the maximum for that funding round, that's going to be established in the NOFA or the solicitation. We just took it out of this plan and made it clear that we'll be setting that in the NOFA or the solicitation. Can we go to the next slide? All right, and then related to that, we clarified that if there's a case where an applicant is applying for additional home funds on a project that has a previous home award, and it's one of those projects that's in a situation where there's a funding gap and they're seeking to fill that funding gap, if the NOFA that they applied under had a maximum total limit on the amount of funds they could apply for, we just clarify here that in this situation where they're applying for additional funds, that previous maximum would no longer apply. So it wouldn't limit what they can apply for in the future on that project. And then finally, we made an additional clarification that if in a funding round for home, if there are not sufficient applications to claim all of the funds for a target or a set aside that has been established in that NOFA, then those funds will revert to the general pool of applications. All right, and I think that is, can we move on to the next slide, please? All right, and just to reiterate, the changes we made here are designed to add the flexibility that we need to, in certain scenarios, to move funds to award projects within our statutory deadline to make sure that we keep those funds in California. And that is everything we have for the method of distribution. Can we move on to the next slide, please? All right, so the only other change we made had to do with our preference language, and this isn't a content change. This is a change just to increase clarity. So the change we made here, we clarified that both projects and programs can request a preference for the population that they serve with their project or program in their application. So it's not limited to just projects or programs. Both projects and programs have that ability. And then there was also an example in the old version of in the previous con plan before this amendment that we took out just to eliminate confusion. We didn't want anyone to think that we were listing the types of preferences that somebody could ask for. So we just took that out to avoid confusion. And we did this to make sure that the con plan is clear for everyone. And that is everything I have on the home preferences as well as the MODs. So thank you, everybody. I'll turn it back over to Luke.
Thank you so much, Corey. And Dawn will be joining us to tell about how you can be heard with your comments.
Thank you,
over
Luke.
to Dawn.
Thank you, Luke and Corey. We're going to talk about the public comment period. These updates for the con plan can be found on our website on the Federal Plans and Report page by clicking the circled box. This will take you to the Consolidated Plans Amendment. The public comment period will run till December 4th, 2025. Next slide, please. How to submit comments for this public hearing. In writing, you can submit us comments at this address, Department of Housing and Community Development, 651 Bannon Street. That's the Southwest Tower, Suite 400, Sacramento, California 95811, and address that to HUD Reporting. Or you can email us at federalreporting.hcd.ca.gov. And the phone number to reach us is 916-263-2771. And so remember also, if you need accessibility or accommodations, please email us at the federal reporting inbox, federalreporting@hcd.ca.gov. Next slide, please. Well, thank you all for joining us today and for your attendance in this public hearing. We appreciate everyone's feedback and attentiveness. On behalf of the entire team, thank you again for your time and engagement. And now we can move on to our next question and comment portion of this public hearing. If you don't wish to remain in the hearing, it's okay to leave. And now we'll provide an opportunity for general questions and then an opportunity for public comment.
Thank you, Dawn. As a reminder, we will leave different ways to contact HCD on the screen while we answer questions or take comments. And we'll leave this going for at least 2 minutes after the last question, just to make sure that everybody has a chance to contribute. I see a question in the chat. Corey, maybe you could address that.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought so. What is a home preference, or what are home preferences? So a preference would be if there was a specific population that your project or program intends to serve. So let's say you had a housing project, a rental project, and this rental project wanted to establish a preference for veterans, right? So what that means is you could put it, in your application. We want to have a preference in our lease up for veterans. So you would have the ability to look at those lease applications first. So the important thing here is that it's not a limitation. So a preference doesn't say, if you want to establish a preference for veterans, it doesn't say that you can only house veterans in this rental unit. It just says that within your application period, you can review the applications from veterans first, if that makes sense. And that could apply for a bunch of different applications, a bunch of different populations, as long as they meet the home income requirements to be eligible as home beneficiaries. Of course.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jason Bradley. I am the branch chief for the project origination branch, which kind of is overseeing these changes. I just want to address a couple of comments in the chat. The first comment is, if home funds are not enough, could we include PHLA funds? And would we need to do a NOFA to add PHLA funds? And so the answer to the first question is yes. The home program does allow for stacking of other funding sources to projects, and you would need to do another NOFA per se, but in your application that is in response to a NOFA that is issued by the home program, we would need to see that funding included in the funding sources. And then the second question is about President Trump's HUD has indicated shifting 3.9 billion away from permanent housing assistance towards transitional housing like sober living environment and reentry from prison housing. What updates do we have? And HCD is monitoring all of the policy objectives that are coming out, at the federal level. We are currently assessing them and in trying to determine the impact on housing in California generally. Do we have any other questions? Anybody want to come off mute and ask a question?
Thank you, Jason, and we'll stick around for a few more minutes in case there's any other questions.
Yeah, my name is Mary Eng. I'm with a supportive housing provider in Santa Clara County, San Jose, Silicon Valley. So we have two facilities right now looking for the third. And I put two questions in. One with regard to what's happening at the federal level, and if you know any more information, because it was announced on the PBS News, I think 2 nights ago. How are you staying in contact with that tremendous shift away from Section 8 HUD VASH, et cetera, towards um, mandatory work requirements and mandatory addiction recovery housing, which we're in favor of, and would be a beneficiary likely of, hopefully getting a grant. Do you have, how are you connected to that? Because that's a huge shift, right?
All right, it is a huge shift, and we are connected with our HUD partners. This is the new rules sent the shockwave through
Right.
through the nation, and
I'm sure.
just like everyone else, across the nation, we are uh, digesting the new requirements and assessing the impact of the new requirements and trying to determine how it will affect California. And at the same time, still carrying out the mission, of
Right.
HCD
Right.
is providing funding, for affordable housing, in California. So if your don't have if the question is, hey, what is HCD going to do? We are assessing the
Yeah.
situation and following it closely and working with our partners with HUD um, to ensure that we still get to carry out our mission.
So, do you know if there's any kind of publication that's already in existence or any, agency communication on that that's in writing? Or is it just talk right now?
The what I can the NOFO is published, and there's a lot of different trade associations that are kind of breaking down the
Uh-huh.
bill that might be helpful for you.
There is a
But
NOFA.
no
There's an
NOFO,
exist.
yeah.
There is a NOFA for the mandatory addiction recovery program housing.
So what I can say is the NOFO for the CLC funding is is out, and I know that it includes more than just that specific
Uh-huh.
uh, more than that specific piece. And so if I know it's on the HUD, the HUB website, from HCD's perspective, uh,
Right.
we are, we are operating, kind of the CPD, type programs. We're following what's happening at the federal level,
Right.
very closely working with our HUD partners and doing all we can to make sure. I mean, this is part of the change with this consolidated plan that Corey just discussed. We want to make sure that we have enough flexibility to continue to live out the mission of HCD, and that's to provide these housing dollars to
Right.
Californians that need it.
I am aware that this is a meeting about the 5-year plan and the changes you've made. And I listened carefully to that. So if I come down to the California level, Matt Haney had, I think, AB 1153, something like that, about setting aside 10% of HCD housing for sober living environments, for a program of sober living combined with affordable housing. I would say 90% of the men that we've had in our facility were all three. They had been in prison in California. They had been homeless. They are in addiction programs. So apparently there was some HCD publication that came out from you guys saying that sober living environments were approved or were never barred or interpreted as we can still use your housing first funds. Do you know what I'm talking about? Can you clarify this?
Yeah, I do know. I think that was part of the governor's,
Yes.
veto, veto
Yes.
message. And
Yes.
so
It was
there's
like 20 pages.
right, right. Um, and so, I don't have the specific, publication that you are, looking for, but I think the general tone of that veto message was that sober livings can fit within the framework of housing first, and so that was the message.
Yes, I recognize that I'm hogging the mic here. Leslie McRae has a couple of questions, but I have a couple more questions. Maybe you should turn to her and give her a turn in
Sure,
her chat. She typed them out.
sure. All right, Leslie, is it okay to run a regulatory agreement with the same terms of home as if using PHLA? Please clarify that we could amend an agreement to stack the other fund sources with home funds. Sorry for the questions. I'm a newbie. And so this seems like a very specific question pertaining to a specific project. And so what we are always willing to do is give technical assistance. My team is here; they're on the line. We can answer, kind of project specific questions. And so I encourage you, Leslie, to reach out to the home team. I'm going to say the email address, and if someone can put it in the email box. It's home@hcd.ca.gov. And the first question, is it okay to run a regulatory agreement with the same terms of home if using PHLA? It's going to be, that's a question that we need to unpack because we would need to look at the terms of that PHLA. But what I can say is, HCD, its other funding programs, we work really, really diligently, really, really hard to make sure that our funding is complementary with each other.
So if no one else is going to ask a question, I'm going to keep going, Jason. Um, oh gosh. So we are actually a 501c3 community-based organization.
Mary, you went mute. Mary.
There we go. I don't know. So I'm using a cell phone, so I think my thumb touched something. Yeah, so we're a community-based organization, 501c3 nonprofit. Many grants through the state or to municipalities and indigenous people, large populations. I know that we can always tag along with one of them, but the other thing that happened that I'm aware of is that BSCC, the Board of State Community Corrections, housing, reentry housing for people leaving prison, that housing component in BSCC, is that I've heard that it's now taken away from BSCC and given to HCD. Is that true?
Is not true. And what you're referring to is a bill that was in the legislature last year, didn't pass,
It didn't pass.
about
Okay.
shifting that program to HCD. So that one did
Okay.
not pass.
Because they have the adult recovery grants, the
Correct.
ARGs. Right. So that's still with them. Okay. That's good to know. And so as a CBO, a community-based organization, uh, with a relatively short history, how would you evaluate us if, applying for a grant for, let's say, 1 to 4 million in order to create a tiny homes community?
So Mary, this it's kind of, we're kind of going towards where Leslie was going, where we're talking specifics about a specific organization, a specific type of project. Myself, my team, more than happy to answer all of your questions.
Yeah.
In this particular forum, we you want to keep kind of the conversation broad as it pertains
Okay.
to the consolidated plan. So for you, Mary, I encourage you to reach out to us at the same email address, and then we can,
Home.
we'll
Yes.
be more than happy to answer your specific project specific, entity specific questions that you have about HCD programming. Any other questions about the consolidated plan or the changes, the amendment?
We can also give an opportunity for comments to be made without recording. So Alexis, if you wouldn't mind stopping the recording, we can give anybody a chance to comment without it being included if they choose.